Welcome to the Savage Productions YouTube channel.
Well, the other Fox body's in the shop. You know, we have two of them going on, two builds going on here. The T-top Fox body, which I've already got we've already got a video out on that one. I'll leave a link in the description below on that one. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out. That one came out really nice. We're not done with the car, but we pretty much finished up the interior of the car, the suspension, engine compartment. I mean, really got a lot of it done. We're just waiting on the engine to come back from the machine shop so we can get that put together, and then we'll be dropping it in, and we'll have a whole nother video on that. Anyway, go check that out for sure. So this is the other black Fox body that we're doing a big build on. We talked about this, you know, having two of them in the shop before. So I just wanted to go over a couple of things of what we've done so far to this one. We just finished doing a fuel system on it. We do have to put the fuel tank back in. I was waiting on a fitting, an adapter that goes on the fuel hat. So on this particular build, really on a lot of these builds that I do that make 500 horsepower, let's say, anything that makes around 400 horse and they're not planning on upping the horsepower, we'll use the stock fuel lines. We'll put a bigger pump in the tank. We just usually do a 340 liter pump. They're about the same price as a, you know, as a 255 or, you know, whatever. So we might as well just do a 340 liter pump. They're E85 compatible. Not that you go to run E85 in them, but you know, if they wanted to, they could. Really, they support, you know, with the proper fuel lines, they support about 700 horsepower. A 340 pump does. That would be normally aspirated for sure on gasoline or race gas, not E85, of course. You know, E85 takes about 30% more volume to flow. So anyway, on builds around 500 horsepower, you know, upwards to about 600, 650, we'll do a stock tank. We'll do a drop-in hat that has AN fittings on them. It'll be a 6 AN for the return, an 8 AN for the feed, and we'll do a 340 liter pump. Drops in there. Now we can go with a bigger one. I mean, they've got some bigger pumps out now. They've got the 400s. I mean, they've got some pretty big pumps now, but they have they get super tight fitting inside that tank. The hole is so small, and I'll show you here in a minute. But what we'll do is we'll run an 8 feed and a 6 return with a fuel pressure regulator, or we'll tap into the stock fuel rail with some sort of an adjustable regulator on the stock fuel rail. But if we're going to do a really nice build, make it look nice, we've done nice builds with stock fuel rails. You know, we'll polish them up, clean them up. A lot of times they get surface rusted, but we like to do aluminum, you know, billet fuel rails. That's what this one's going to have, and yeah, it's going to be really nice. So the tank on this thing, you know, is in really good shape. No rust at all. This whole car is in excellent shape. Like, there's no rust on this car at all. So this is the drop-in hat. It's a brand new hat. You know, it's got an 8 feed, a 6 return, and then we use pretty much, I've used Summit Racing fuel line. I've used all different ones, but I like using Fore Innovations. They're very affordable, and they just go together so good. These are PTFE lined braided stainless steel. You know, here's the number 8, and then here's the 6, and we attach them with the metal clamps that's got the rubber protectors on them. And right here I went ahead and put a little bit of heat wrap on it, just because it gets, you know, a little close to the exhaust here. You know, we don't want no heat going on there. It'll run on down. This section here we still have to attach over. It's actually going to end up, you know, it's going to run probably something about right there. Most likely we're going to do frame connectors on this one. So I want to keep this loose and out of the way, because the frame connectors are going to come up to about here somewhere. We're going to end up welding them in, and then, you know, it'll continue on to the front. So that's why this is not attached yet. But we continue on. This whole setup is Fore Innovations. So this is their filter. Very nice piece. It comes with a mounting bracket. It's got a little set screw so you can snug it up so it won't move in the mounting bracket. You can purchase these with any type of ORB fittings. These have O-rings is what they are, and you can get them, you know, different sizes, whatever you need to go to whatever size fuel line you have, which is really nice. And I believe this is a 10 ORB out, in and out. So this fitting is a 10 ORB to an 8 AN, since we're running an 8. These are kind of a stainless steel fuel filter in there that you can take out and clean. So it just runs nice and straight all the way up. We've got it attached in here. We've got the inner fender well out. We've got it attached. The feed is going to go through that hole right there. I've got a piece of painter's tape around there because I don't want to scratch the paint on the engine compartment. That will come off once we get you know, the engine in and finish it up. So you'll see this, the return goes over here. Let me see if you can see it. The return is attached up there. It's going to come down to a 90 hose end, and then it screws into a 90 fitting that comes out of the bottom of the regulator. And we mount the regulators right there where the old airbox used to be, because we use an Anderson Motorsports power pipe that will go through that round hole right there. And they look really sweet when the whole package is done. So that is a Fore Innovations fuel pressure regulator. It's going to have an 8 feed coming in, 6 return, and on the top you'll see the tape up there. That's actually the vacuum port. So when we plug the vacuum line in, it drops the fuel pressure down, just like if you had one on the rail. So we've got the feed just taped up right here for now, so it's not flopping around, scratching the engine compartment up. We got it all painted, and you know, basically that feed's gonna come out and run along the firewall behind the engine. It's gonna come up between the valve cover on the driver's side and the fuel rail on the driver's side is where it's gonna lay. And then it's got a 90-degree hose end on it. It's gonna connect into a 90-degree ORB fitting, number 8 to a number 8, 8 AN to a number 8 ORB, and it's gonna go right into the fuel rail. So, and then on the back of the intake, you'll have a number 8 line that we'll make up that goes from one fuel rail to the other fuel rail, travels back up to the front of the passenger fuel rail, then it'll be a number 8 going over to the regulator. So that's what that 90 is that you see tape on there. That's going to be coming from the passenger side fuel rail going into the regulator. So it's a pretty cool way of doing it. It's clean. You know, you have the line coming across the back of the engine, and it basically feeds through one rail, goes to the other rail, and then to the regulator, and then the regulator has the return, and the whole rail is constantly fed. There's no dead heading on the rail. Now, That's the best way to do it if you're running a centrifugal supercharger or a turbo. That's really the best way to do that. But you can run that anyway. You can have normally aspirated or whatever. And I like running them that way. We've had no problems with any fuel starvation on any cylinder. And it's just a clean look. You know, when it's all done, it's just a clean look. So, well, we're just gonna pick up where we left off here. On this deal, we got a little bit more done to it. I'm still working on the engine. But we went ahead and we've got the brake booster in. We put a new brake booster in it. We put a new master cylinder on it. I mean, the old booster was in bad shape. The master cylinder had been leaking out of the back. So with this whole engine compartment being painted and looking so good, we just had to put a new one on. We painted, we sanded, clean painted the wiper motor, and we went ahead and bought a new cover for it. A lot of these get lost. You guys know these covers just pop on, they get lost. Well, we got a new cover for it. That looks good. And the battery tray on this car was broken, so we got a new battery tray. Man, that looks nice. That's a nice piece right there. That's definitely a good quality piece right there. I was really surprised when I seen it. It's in good shape. And here's the top view of the Fore Innovations regulator. That's a sweet piece right there too, man. And yeah, the fuel line, we just have the feed coming in. I just got it kind of zip tied down here out of the way. I don't want it scratching the engine compartment. And then we went ahead and installed the Holley Terminator X, and that's the harness for it. We just got it laying out here for now because we're going to be dropping this engine in a few days. So let me swing around here and show you. We got it mounted under the seat is where it goes, and you basically run the harness in. You run it underneath the carpet. You go underneath there and cut a little hole out, bring them up. Nice clean installation. We still have to run the vacuum line. This is for the map sensor that is in the Holley. We have to run a small vacuum line. Actually, I need to go get some. We have a roll of vacuum line, but we didn't quite have enough, so I got to get another roll. So that's why that's left open. As soon as we run that vacuum line, we'll button this all back up and put the kick panel back on, put the seat back in. So that is good to go there. Yep, and that's kind of where we're at, man. It's coming along, that's for sure. Looks really good with the UPR K member in there. It's going to look nice, man, when it's done. It's going to look really good. What do you guys see this engine? We're doing a Holley Hi-Ram on it and everything, man. Anderson Motorsports power pipe. It's going to be sweet. All the brackets are going to be painted and everything. So I got to show you guys something else we ended up doing on this deal. Customer called and I talked to him for a little while, kind of filled him in on what we've done, what's going on with it. And he wanted us to go ahead and sandblast or media blast in the cabinet, the calipers and the drums. Well, the calipers, actually, we didn't take off the car. We cleaned them really good. We sanded them down. They were painted red years ago, and they were looking kind of bad. So he just wanted them painted black. So that's what we did. I just wanted to show you before we continue here. But we're in the process of bleeding them because we did do, as you guys know, we did do the master cylinder and power booster. So that's why the hose is on there. But they came out pretty good, you know. I mean, the rotors obviously will clean up once we get this thing on the road. But yeah, we cleaned up the calipers, the outside pad, and we did paint them with caliper paint. Now on the drums, since we was able to take them off, we did put those in the blasting cabinet, and we blasted them, and we actually painted them. They look really nice. That's a satin black finish. And I ended up using a paint that is for cast iron grills. It's a 1100 degree paint, and it's a satin black. They have satin, they have flat, and they have gloss, and the satin looks really nice. So for you guys, you know, that need high temp paint, that stuff is really good. It's chemical resistant and everything. Works great. So yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that. These are going to be kind of temporary. Once we get this car running and get it, you know, drivable, you know, he's going to take the car, have fun with it this summer, and then he's planning on doing a brake kit on this car. That's why he didn't really want to spend a lot of money on it right now, because he's putting so much money in the rest of the car. But they just didn't look good. Obviously you can see them through the wheels. These are the wheels that's on the car. So that's going to look a lot better having them, you know, a nice little painted black caliper and brake drums. That's going to definitely make it stand out just a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the engine room and show you guys what we got going on in there with the engine that's going in this car. Well, we've made it into the engine building room and the parts room. Through that door is the parts room. This whole deal is about 300 square foot. Between that room and this room, it's about 300 square foot. And it works out pretty good. I'd like to have a little bit bigger of a room for the engine building room, but it works out fine. These are, you know, engines that are ready to be put together. The one in the back over there in the very back corner is actually Justin's 363. It's already done, of course. It's been here for a while. We'll be throwing that in his car soon. And the one in the back is an LS2 408 stroker that is actually for one of the shop cars. Mitchell actually works here. He's the technician here, helps me out, run the shop. We're doing a big build on his vet. And then the one closest to me is an LS3 416. It's ready to go together. That one there is a 408, 351 Windsor 408 that's ready to go together. That one actually has already been clearance painted. The crank is sitting in it. It is ready to go together once I get this one finished up. But yeah, these are all the parts for all the builds we got going on. I've got them all separated. Each place is for a specific build. We have them, you know, listed and everything, so we don't get anything mixed up. And then all this is all the in-house stuff. Most of this is for Mitchell's Corvette, new tires, you know, intake. I mean, just all kinds of stuff. He's actually getting it wrapped right now. It's out in the shop. A friend of ours that actually wraps cars is here doing it, and Mitch is helping him out by removing anything he needs to be removed. He's actually helping out removing anything that needs to be removed to wrap the car. So that's cool. It's looking really nice too. Once we get that thing wrapped, once it's all done, you know, we'll have some video on that car too. We're going to be doing some video on the engine build. It's going to be a pretty spicy setup too. But anyway, let's go back to this one. This is the 347 small block Ford that's going in that black Fox body out there. And it's ready for the oil pan. So it's pretty cool. We got a main support system on it. Ties all the mains together. Kind of makes the bottom end stronger. I don't do any stroker kits without putting the main support on these, especially on the 302 blocks. Now on the 351 Windsors, I generally do the same thing because we're usually making quite a bit of power. Usually when I do a 408 small block Ford, we shoot for around that 575 to 600 horsepower, flywheel horsepower. And we go up from there, of course. Those blocks, you know, I've thrown 850, 900 horse to them, and I've never heard a 351 Windsor block, even the newer ones. But this particular engine here that I'm doing, this 408, it doesn't have a main support on it. It's going in a truck. He's only going to be shifting this thing about 6,000 RPM. The cam I'm putting in it is going to pull good to 6,000 RPM. And with the size of the main caps, you don't need a support for that. Plus it keeps the cost down a little bit. So anyway, the actual oil pump that I'm running on this one is a Mellings racing oil pump. Now they do make two different oil pumps. They have kind of a performance oil pump and they have a racing oil pump. And if you notice this one, the actual cover that covers the gears, you can see the shaft right here. This is a extra support for the gears. You know, the shaft runs down into the oil pump, and typically it won't run up into the cap, right? Well, on their racing pumps, it does. It gives it more support and just stabilizes the gear in there. Now here is the same pump that is not a racing pump, but a performance pump. These are still good pumps. This is what a lot of people actually run. And if you notice, the spring on this has a cap on it, not a screw. And it doesn't have the support plate on the top. I use those a lot too. But on this one, since we're going to be twisting this one up to about 7,000 RPM, we want to put a little bit better pump on it. It also has, you can really barely see it, but instead of an actual plug, it has a pipe plug that's threaded. So you can remove that and change the spring. This pump is a high volume pump, but it's a stock pressure pump. And it does come with a high pressure spring that you can replace. But on this application, I'm going to stay with stock pressure, high volume. That'd be plenty of oil flow for an engine like this that's going to pull up to 7,000 RPM. Now, if you were going to pull above 7,000 RPM, 7,500 or 8,000, that one would still work fine, but you're better off having a high pressure, high volume pump. Typically you want 10 pounds of oil pressure for every 1,000 RPM. So if you're twisting an engine up to 7,500, you know, you want to try to keep 75 pounds of oil pressure. And then at 7,000, you'll be somewhere around 70 pounds of oil pressure. 6,500, 65 pounds of oil pressure, right? That's kind of how it works. Stock pressure on small block Fords run about 65 pounds of oil pressure. And on a fresh engine with good bearing clearance and everything, at high RPM, it will go up above that a little bit. The spring in that typically will bypass somewhere around 65 pounds. And since it's not going to be a racing engine shifting at 7,000 all the time, it'll be happy. It'll be fine, especially with a high volume pump like this. High volume pumps also help keep the bearings cooler, because the oil that passes through them at such a rate really cools the bearings down. So that's pretty cool. But if you're going to build an engine that's only going to pull to 6,000 or 6,500, you can just put a stock pump in there. You don't need a high volume pump. So it kind of depends on the application. And if it's going to be used for racing all the time, then you may want to. But this one is coming together good. It is ready for the oil pan. I like to use the oil pan studs, and I also like to use valve cover studs. It looks good. It makes it easier to put the oil pan and valve covers on. They're not very expensive. They're all stainless steel. And here's, you know, the nuts. Now the reason you see two extra ones here, these two here you cannot use with the Moroso pan. The way they've got this made is there's not enough room for them to drill a hole here for them to studs to stick through, so they don't utilize them. Now on a Canton oil pan, I use a lot of Canton 7-quart pans, and those actually, the way they make them, they include the holes here to run those, but on these they don't. So so I like to use a one-piece Felpro oil pan gasket. It's got the metal core inside. Valve cover gaskets are the same way. Those, I like to use them. Believe it or not, you can reuse these if you ever had to drop the pan. You want to put a little dab of silicone in between the timing cover in the corner underneath there and the gasket on each side. Right here where the timing cover meets the block, you want to put another dab under there. And then in the back, same thing, you want to put a little dab in there. You don't want to put anything on the top. You don't need to put anything on the top. It seals up just fine. That's about it. The only other thing I guess I can mention is you want to check the clearance between the bottom of the oil pan and the pickup tube. And you just basically put a straight edge across here. You measure. I always put the gasket on first. I measure from the top, from the gasket to the bottom of the straight edge. You want to measure on both sides. Sometimes these are angled a little bit. So whatever the measurement you get, you just split it in half. You average it. Then you put a straight edge across here and you measure from here down. And you want to have 3/8 to a 1/2 inch of clearance, somewhere in that range. They actually say a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of clearance. I don't like to go a 1/4 inch. That's a little small. Now, if you're running a stock oil pump, a stock pan, and you're only going to twist it to 6,000, 6,500, that's fine. A 1/4 inch will be fine. You're not going to suck it dry or anything. I like to shoot for 3/8 of an inch. Now on this particular one, since we're going to be, it's capable of 7,000 RPM. It's a bigger pan. I've got it just under a 1/2 inch. It's right in between 3/8 and a 1/2 inch. And that'll be perfect. So that's pretty much it. I'm going to go ahead and get this oil pan on, and after that, I'll be checking the valve clearance with the heads, just to make sure they're all good. And then I'll be throwing the heads on. Another thing I wanted to mention is, instead of using link bar style roller lifters, we are using a factory style roller lifter. And these are the, I call them the spider set. These hold down, you basically have these dog bones that hold the roller lifters from turning. And I just like replacing them. I've never seen any of these break. I have heard of them breaking. So for the cost, you can get a brand new set. It comes with all new dog bones and everything. That's them in the package. So the lifters that I am running in this engine are short travel lifters. Because it's a hydraulic lifter, it's capable of twisting up some RPM. Since this engine is going to be able to rev up to 7,000 RPM, you want a good hydraulic lifter to do that. These are really affordable. If I would have got the link bar style short travel lifters, they're pretty expensive. I can't remember exactly right offhand what they were, but I was able to get these factory style lifters that I can use with that factory setup, and these are short travel lifters. They're short travel rollers. They were definitely more money than, let's say a high performance roller lifter like a Trick Flow or something. But being that they're a short travel lifter, these are good for high RPM. So they're going to work very well in this setup. When you do a short travel lifter, your preload is very critical. So on a typical hydraulic roller or hydraulic lifter, once you get the end plate out of the push rod, you have to crank them in somewhere around, you can go from a 1/4 turn to 1 full turn of preload. I like to go to about a 1/2 turn of preload. It really depends on the thread count, how if the threads are fine on the stud or if they're coarse. But on a short travel lifter, you cannot go over a quarter of a turn of preload. You have to go either 0 lash to 1/4 turn, and that's it. And there's a certain thousandths of an inch is what they shoot for. And the reason why is because the travel of the plunger in the lifter is short. It'll bottom out. But what's good about it having less oil in that lifter, it allows you to run more RPM. So that's what we're going to do. So yeah, that's pretty cool. That's what you see there. They're basically soaking. You don't want to pump them up or pre-pump them up with oil. You just want to throw them in some good clean oil, let them soak for a few hours, and then you can drop them in, and you're ready to go. All right, the piston to valve clearance came out good. With these pistons, we got plenty of valve relief on the pistons. So, and it's only around a 600 lift, you know, but it does have some decent duration, which keeps the valve open longer. So you got to make sure that you have, you know, good clearance as the piston is, you know, moving up and down. And we're good. So these heads, you know, the 195, they're the Renegade 195cc heads. They got a 205 intake valve. They do have the 7/16 screwed in studs. The springs that come with them are good to a 650 lift, which is good. We wanted something a little bit tighter on the spring so we could twist this thing up to about 7,000 and we don't have any valve float. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you check this out. This thing looks sweet. I've got the I got the Holley Hi-Ram just sitting on there right now. Make sure everything is fitting real good. I like to mock everything up first. Obviously, we're not going to be dropping this engine in with the intake on. As you can see, there's just no, you know, there's just not going to be any good way of doing that. So we're going to drop the engine in without the intake on, and once we get it in, we'll bolt the intake on and get the fuel rails on. So that intake, it comes with fuel rails. It comes with all the hardware to mount it. And here's the fuel rails that it comes with. Sweet. It's all anodized black with the Holley EFI engraved in there. It accepts an 8 AN on either end. And there you go. Comes with the hardware. It actually comes with O-rings for the fuel injectors, which is really cool. So yeah, we still got to get fuel injectors. Fuel system's already done on the car. So I mean, it's gonna look sweet. There's the water pump. It's a high volume water pump, aluminum. So that really makes it look good. These valve covers, these are some that we offer. These valve covers are actually off of this engine, which is one of our shop cars, Justin's engine, my son. And I just wanted to put these on there just to kind of mock it up, see what it looks like. So we're actually going with the same valve train as these. These are the 205 heads, Renegade heads. And they do have upgraded valve springs and locks and retainers than what would normally come with those heads. And that's just because we needed some tighter seat pressure for the solid roller and the high RPM application that this engine is set up for. This one's going to be upwards of about 8,500 RPM. It probably ended up touching about 9 grand from time to time. Valve springs will be more than enough for that. Besides, once we hit it with the nitrous, you really need a tighter valve spring for that, with that combination. Anyway, I've got I went ahead and got all the guide plates set up where they need to be. The studs are screwed down, tightened up. I've already ordered the push rods. They will be here tomorrow, actually. So we are running this setup. I'm not going to pull it out of the box, I'll just show you. So this is the exact same setup that we're going to run on this engine. Okay, we're doing the Scorpion 1.6 roller rockers. We've got the AFR girdle for the roller rockers. You basically got to get the longer poly locks for those. And man, this is just a sweet setup. You know, you got to have 12 valve covers for these, but it ties all of them together and makes them very strong to keep the valve train under control. So that's what we're doing on this one, just because it's going to be twisting up to about 7,000. I really like to do the stud girdles on the rocker shafts if we twist anything above 6,500. I know there's a lot of guys that do not run these, but you know, I guess it's just the personal preference, and I like to run them for sure. It just helps stabilize the valve train, that's all. So that's pretty much it. Just kind of wanted to show you guys, you know, what it looks like, you know, with the intake on. We may or may not be using this style of valve cover, not sure yet, but I just put them on there just to kind of mock it up and, you know, get this video. Just wanted to show you kind of what it looks like. Man, this thing is gonna look super sweet. It really is. You know, with the oil pan, the heads, the intake. So this intake is a 95 millimeter opening. We are going to run an 85 millimeter AccuFab. We could go bigger, but we really don't need to. An 85 millimeter is plenty for this setup, and it's going to be sweet. Plus it's going to match up really well with the Anderson Motorsports power pipe. We wanted a nice smooth transition from the power pipe to the throttle body, and that'll give it, you know, a perfect transition there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it off here. Went on long enough. I do appreciate you guys checking this out and sticking with me to the end so you can see this beautiful engine. So yeah, leave some comments, tell me what you think about it. We're going to have another video about this engine here. I've already got the crank in it. I've already done all the clearancing. Got the crank in it, torqued down, and I'm going to be putting all the pistons on the rods and getting this thing put together. This is one of our 408 stroker builds, small block Fords, from a 351 Windsor. So stay tuned for that video coming up. So yeah, appreciate it. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you think, and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you get notifications of the new videos that come out. All right, I appreciate it. We will catch you on the next video.